There is a woman in Osaka who has never once owned a bathroom scale. She is 58 years old. She cooks 3 times a day, eats rice at almost every meal, and has not been to a doctor for anything beyond a routine check in 11 years. She is not particularly disciplined. She does not track macros. She has never heard the phrase clean eating. She just doesn't buy certain things. That's the whole secret, really. Not what she eats, what she refuses to bring through her door. Meanwhile, most of us over 40 have tried everything. The labels, the low-fat versions, the protein bars that taste like chalk and cost $4 each. And still, something isn't adding up. The energy isn't there, the weight won't move, the sleep is shallow, and the stomach is unsettled more mornings than not. We keep blaming ourselves, our willpower, our busy schedules, our age. But Japan has one of the lowest rates of obesity in the developed world, around 3% depending on the measure, compared to over 40% in the United States. And that gap did not appear because Japanese people have stronger discipline. It appeared because of what sits in their pantries, and more importantly, what doesn't. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which 10 foods the average Japanese household quietly avoids, what makes each one specifically harmful in ways that go beyond just calories, and what you can replace them with tonight, not tomorrow, not after you finish what's in the cabinet. Tonight. Number 7 is something most of us consider a health food, and number 10 is something almost every Western doctor has been recommending for 30 years. So stay with me. Here's the first thing to understand. The Japanese model of eating isn't built on restriction. It's built on a concept called mottai nai, roughly, a regret over waste, a respect for what things truly are. When something has no real value to the body, bringing it into your home isn't neutral. It's a small act of disrespect toward yourself. Not moral failure, just a quiet mismatch between what you want for your life and what you're choosing to keep close. That idea changes how the list below feels. These aren't things to white-knuckle your way past. They're things that, once you understand them, you'll simply stop wanting to own. It sits in the dairy aisle, looking virtuous. Low-fat label, real fruit on the packaging, sometimes a little leaf graphic. Here's what's actually in most of those containers. Somewhere between 15 and 25 grams of added sugar. That's 4 to 6 teaspoons in a single small serving that most people eat for breakfast thinking they've made a healthy choice. In Japan, plain fermented foods, including simple unsweetened yogurt, are a daily staple. The concept at play here is kiwo tsukeru, a kind of mindful attention to what you're actually consuming versus what the packaging implies. Fermentation is valued, added sugar is not. Researchers studying the gut microbiome, including work referenced by gastroenterologist Dr. Will Bolsewitz, have noted that the bacteria in the gut respond very differently to plain fermented foods versus sweetened versions. The sugar spike interrupts the very microbial benefit you were trying to get. The good bacteria get outcompeted. The shift: plain whole milk yogurt, a teaspoon of honey if you need sweetness, and a few fresh berries. That's not restriction. That's actually the better version of the thing you were already reaching for. Bread in Japan is different. When Japanese people do eat bread, and many do, particularly in urban areas, they eat it in small amounts, often fresh from a neighborhood bakery, and it rarely contains a paragraph's worth of additives. Western supermarket bread frequently contains high-fructose corn syrup, soy isolates, dough conditioners, and emulsifiers that help it stay soft on a shelf for 2 weeks. That shelf stability is a red flag, not a feature. Researcher Tim Spector at King's College London, who studies the gut through the British Gut Project, has noted that ultra-processed foods, defined largely by their additive content rather than their macro profile, are consistently linked to lower microbiome diversity. Less diversity means a gut that handles blood sugar poorly, inflammation signals that don't quiet down, and energy that spikes and crashes. The shift here isn't cutting carbs. It's finding bread with a short, readable ingredient list, or eating rice instead, which, incidentally, the woman in Osaka does without thinking about it at all. This one stings a little, because so many people over 40 have made this their compromise. You gave up the regular soda. You're drinking the zero-calorie version. You've been responsible about it. But here's the mechanism, and this part matters. Artificial sweeteners, particularly aspartame and sucralose, trigger a sweetness signal in the brain without delivering the calories the brain was expecting. Research by neuroscientist Dana Small at Yale found that this mismatch disrupts the brain's ability to calibrate hunger and fullness accurately over time. The reward signal fires, the satisfaction doesn't arrive. You end up eating more later, often without connecting it to the drink you had 3 hours earlier. In Japan, the dominant beverage is green tea or plain water. Not because of discipline, because those are what's in the house. The concept of ma, the deliberate pause, the space between things, applies here. There's no drink trying to trick your body into feeling like it's getting sugar. There's just clean space and tea that has its own gentle chemistry. Swap, hot or cold green tea, sparkling water with a slice of citrus, or barley tea, which is the everyday drink in many Japanese homes and has essentially no caloric signature. Almost no traditional Japanese breakfast looks anything like a bowl of cereal with cold milk. The traditional morning meal involves rice, miso soup, a small piece of fish, pickled vegetables, maybe an egg. It is savory, warm, varied, and relatively low in fast-digesting carbohydrates. Breakfast cereal, even the ones marketed as high-fiber and heart-healthy, is typically processed enough that it digests quickly, spikes blood sugar fast, and leaves most people hungry within 2 hours. Chronobiologist Dr. Sachin Panda at the Salk Institute has published extensively on how the first meal's composition sets the metabolic tone for the rest of the day. A high glycemic first meal trains the body to expect fast fuel and creates a kind of craving cycle that doesn't reset until late afternoon. This isn't a minor inconvenience. For people over 40 whose blood sugar regulation is already less efficient than it was at 25, that morning spike and crash pattern accumulates. The shift. Miso soup is genuinely easy to make. Rice takes 10 minutes in a rice cooker. Even eggs and vegetables is closer to what your body is asking for in the morning than a bowl of something that was assembled in a factory and has 17 ingredients. Japan has snacks. Let's be clear about that. Japan has an entire culture of snack foods. But there's a meaningful difference between the way snacking functions in Japan and how it tends to work in the West. Most traditional Japanese snacks, rice crackers, small portions of pickled vegetables, roasted seaweed, are simple, light, and eaten at a table, not grabbed from a bag while doing something else. Neuroscientist Anna Lemke at Stanford, author of Dopamine Nation, describes how hyper-palatable processed snacks, engineered to hit fat, salt, and sugar simultaneously, trigger dopamine responses that the brain cannot easily downregulate. You keep eating not because you're hungry, but because the reward signal won't stop. And with each exposure, the baseline shifts slightly, requiring more to feel satisfied. The Japanese concept of hara-hachi-bu, eating to 80% full, is completely incompatible with foods designed to override your satiety signals. You can't practice one with the other. Slow down here. That's worth sitting with for a second. The food is designed to make you ignore your own body's signals. That's not a failure of willpower. That's the intended function of the product. The shift. Roasted nori, plain rice crackers, a small handful of edamame. Foods that allow you to actually notice when you're done. Sliced turkey, packaged ham, salami, bologna. Convenient, high in protein, and a staple of the Western lunch. Japan essentially doesn't have this category as a dietary foundation. Fish, fresh, pickled, or simply prepared, fills the protein role at lunch and dinner. When meat is eaten, it's usually in small amounts as part of a dish, not as the centerpiece. The concern with processed deli meat isn't just the sodium, though that's significant. It's the nitrates used as preservatives and the ultra-processed nature of most of these products. The World Health Organization classified processed meats as Group 1 carcinogens in 2015, meaning the evidence linking them to colorectal cancer was considered sufficient at the time. Not definitive proof of harm for any individual, but a category worth thinking carefully about, especially as a daily habit. The shift is gentle here. A tin of good sardines or a piece of leftover salmon handles protein at lunch without that risk profile. It takes about 30 extra seconds of thought and tastes considerably better. This is the one that surprises people, and you were warned. Plant-based burgers and sausages have been marketed as the thoughtful, health-conscious alternative to red meat. Some people in the 40-plus age group have made a real effort to shift toward them. But look at the ingredient list of a typical plant-based burger. You'll find methylcellulose, various isolates and concentrates, natural flavors that may cover dozens of unspecified compounds, and sodium levels that rival fast food. These are ultra-processed foods dressed in the language of health. There is no traditional Japanese equivalent of this category. Japanese plant-forward eating draws on tofu, fermented or otherwise simply prepared, edamame, miso, natto, and other whole or minimally processed legumes that have existed in the diet for centuries. Researcher Christopher Gardner at Stanford has studied plant-based diets extensively And the consistent finding is that whole plant foods produce health benefits, not simply plant-derived ingredients in processed form. The shift? Actual tofu, actual tempeh, foods you can recognize as what they are. Most bottled dressings are built around refined seed oils, soybean, sunflower, canola, in heavily processed form, combined with sugar, salt, emulsifiers, and stabilizers to keep it from separating on a shelf. Japanese salad dressings, when they appear, tend toward rice vinegar, sesame oil, and a small amount of soy sauce or miso. The profile is simple, fermented, and without the refined oil base that has become the backbone of the Western pantry. Researcher Paul Breslin at Rutgers and others studying the connection between dietary fats and inflammatory markers have noted the distinction between how different oils affect the body's baseline inflammatory state. Highly refined seed oils, consumed in large quantities, appear to shift this baseline in ways that chronic disease research is increasingly taking seriously. You probably have a bottle of salad dressing in your fridge right now. Check the ingredient list when you finish this video. The first ingredient is very likely one of those oils, the shift. A small jar with rice vinegar, sesame oil, a touch of soy sauce, and grated ginger. It takes 2 minutes. It tastes better. And nothing about it needs a shelf life measured in years. Not coffee. Coffee, especially green tea and coffee consumed in their plain forms, is a feature of Japanese daily life. What doesn't exist in traditional Japanese culture is the large, sweetened and flavored coffee drink that has become a morning habit, and often a lunch habit and an afternoon habit for enormous numbers of people in the West. A flavored latte from a chain can contain 40 to 60 grams of sugar. That's more than most people would put in a dessert, and it's consumed quickly, often while commuting or working, with no attention paid to it. Andrew Huberman at Stanford has discussed at length the relationship between adenosine, the compound that makes you feel tired, and caffeine timing. His research-informed recommendation is to delay caffeine for 90 minutes after waking, allowing the natural cortisol peak to clear. Most people drink their sweetened coffee within minutes of getting up, fighting a biological process that was actually working in their favor. Japanese coffee culture, when it exists, tends towards small, plain, often espresso-style drinks. The sugar isn't there because it was never added. The shift. Delay your first coffee. Drink a glass of water first, then green tea or plain coffee. The sweetened version of the habit isn't the treat it feels like. It's a disruption. This is the one that has had the longest run. Low-fat milk, low-fat cheese, reduced-fat peanut butter. The entire low-fat movement of the 1980s and 1990s reshaped grocery stores, dietary guidelines, and the bodies of people who followed the advice in good faith. Here's what happened when food manufacturers removed fat. They added sugar and refined starches to restore palatability. The fat that was removed was often the thing telling your brain you were satisfied. The sugar that replaced it told your brain you weren't. Japan never had a low-fat movement in the same way. Traditional Japanese eating includes whole foods, fish with their natural fat, eggs, fermented soy with its complete nutritional profile, small amounts of whole dairy where dairy appears at all. Nothing was engineered to be a reduced fat version of itself. Slow down here. The low-fat food in your refrigerator might be the single thing undermining the effort you've been putting in for years. Walter Willett at Harvard School of Public Health has been one of the more prominent researchers pushing back on the saturated fat narrative, arguing that the type and source of fat matters far more than simply removing it. The evidence continues to accumulate. The shift. Stop buying low-fat versions of foods. Buy the whole version in a smaller quantity. Let the food do what it was designed to do. The woman in Osaka doesn't think about any of this consciously. She doesn't have a list on her refrigerator. She just knows, in the way her grandmother knew, that certain things don't belong in her kitchen. Not because they're forbidden, because they're not food in any sense her body recognizes. That's the real difference. Not discipline, not a special diet. A pantry that quietly works with the body instead of against it. None of this requires a complete overhaul tonight. That's not how lasting change happens. Kaizen, the Japanese principle of small, continuous improvement, asks only for one better choice at a time. One thing you stop buying on the next grocery run. One replacement that takes 10 seconds to make. Leave this video with one item in mind. Just one. Go look at what's in your kitchen right now and choose the thing you're done bringing home. That's enough. That's exactly enough. If this shifted something for you, share it with someone who has been fighting the same quiet battle. And leave a comment. Which one of these 10 are you letting go of first? Not a prescription, a a perspective. Your doctor knows your body. This is simply what the data and a few hundred years of Japanese kitchens have been quietly suggesting.